Hello, it's Technology Central here, and welcome to our latest Excel tutorial. In this tutorial, we're going to show you how to create a Gantt chart in Excel. A Gantt chart is a common project planning tool used to visually lay out each of the tasks within a project and when they're going to take place. In this tutorial, we're going to show you two examples of creating a Gantt chart in Excel. The first is using an Excel chart, as you can see on the screen here. The second is using conditional formatting, as you can see on the screen here. Before we can start creating our Gantt charts, we're going to need to fill in some data. We're going to start with a list of tasks. Here's an example list for our kitchen renovation. We also need to know when the project is going to start and the number of days each task will take. You also need to know the dependency between tasks. That is, which tasks you can start after each previous task finishes. Let's start by calculating the end date for our first task. For our kitchen remodel, we're assuming that we're only going to be working on weekdays rather than weekends. To calculate our end date, we're therefore going to use Excel's built-in WORKDAY function. To use this, start by typing equals in the cell, followed by WORKDAY. We now need to provide two arguments. The first is the start date. This is the date that you're starting to count from. Select the start date. And enter a comma. We now need to give the second argument. This is the number of days after the start date that the task will be completed. Our first task will take 2 working days. Given the days parameter to workday is the number of days after the starting day, but not including it, we need to take 1 away from the number of days the task will take. To do this, we're going to first select the cell containing the number of days, and then subtract 1. If during your project you also want to take into account holiday days, you can then provide them as an additional parameter to Workday. For our project, we're not including any holidays, so we're going to leave that blank. Then, close the brackets and press Enter. We've now got the end date. Note the 2nd and 3rd of March 2024 are weekends, so that's why the end date is the 4th of March. In preparation, we're now going to drag this end date down, noting that all of the values will be incorrect until the start date has been filled in. We're also now going to calculate the number of elapsed days. This will be useful when we're plotting our Gantt chart later. To do this, we're going to do a simple subtraction. So equals, then we're going to select the end date, and then subtract the starting date. And this gives us the number of days that have passed between them. We can again drag this down, and it's ready to go. We now need to go through and fill in the starting dates for our tasks. To do this, we're going to simply select the end dates where this task can start. I think plumbing and electrics can both start as soon as strip out old kitchen is completed. So I'm going to come here, type equals, select the end date, and hit enter. The new floor installation will start after the plumbing and electrics are completed. So I'm going to type equals, and then select the end date for electrics. New appliances installation can start after floor installation, as can cupboards and surface installation. And finally, decorating can start once everything else is completed. We can now see we've filled in our table and got all of the right values. We can also see that the end date and elapsed days have updated to be correct. We're now ready to create our Gantt chart. To do this, first select the task column. Do this by holding down the left button of your mouse as you drag along that column. We're also going to select the elapsed days column. Hold down Control on your keyboard, then left click in elapsed days and drag down to select the data. Now let go of the Control key. Come to Insert on the ribbon, Recommended Charts, All Charts, Bar, and then select the second option for Stacked Bar, and click OK. We've now got a chart. We now need to edit our data and edit the axes to turn it into our Gantt chart. With the chart selected, come to the Chart Design tab on the ribbon, then click Select Data. We're going to add a second series here. In this Legend Entries series pane on the left hand side, come to Add. Select the series name as Start Date, and then select the series values as all of these values. Then click OK. We need to change the start date's horizontal axis labels to be the tasks. Click Edit on the right hand side whilst Start Date is selected. Then, for the axis label range, select all of the tasks excluding the heading. Then click OK. We can see that both fields now have the same horizontal axis labels. We now need to change the order that these are shown on our bar chart. With Start Date selected, press the Move Up button. This now means Start Date is shown, followed by elapsed days. Finally, click OK. These blue parts are now starting to resemble our Gantt chart. We need to hide these orange parts of our chart. To do that, click on one of the bars whilst you have the chart selected. You can see that all of the orange bars are now highlighted. Then, right-click and click Format Data Series. This pane on the right-hand side will then appear. Click the Fill and Line option. In the Fill tab, click No Fill. And on the Border tab, click No Line. This will make that first series invisible. You can now close this data series. We now need to change this horizontal axis to be easier to understand and to exclude this initial range here. Click on any of the labels on the bottom horizontal axis and you'll see that it's selected. Then right-click and choose Format Axis. Here we're going to change the bounds. The minimum and the maximum here are the dates that we want for our range. These numbers are Excel's representation of a date. Change the minimum to the starting date. For us, that's the 1st of March 24, and hit Enter. You can also change the maximum if you choose to, but in our example, the default maximum is okay. We're also going to change the units for our grid lines. To make our Gantt chart easy to use, we're going to set the major units to every 7 days, so they represent 1 week. We're also going to set the minor units to 1, so they represent a single day. You can now close this axis formatter, so that we can see the markings between each day. With the chart selected, come to Add a Chart Element, the top left of the Chart Design tab of the ribbon. Here, under Grid Lines, click Primary Minor Vertical. As you can see, we've now got a series of faint lines marking the boundaries of each day. The last thing we're going to do to our chart is change the order of this vertical axis, so that the first thing that happens is at the top and the last is at the bottom. To do this, select the vertical axis with your chart selected. You can do that by left-clicking on any of the labels on this axis. Now, right-click and click Format Axis. On the Axis Options tab, in the Format Axis options that appear on the right-hand side, come down to here and tick the Categories in Reverse Order checkbox. We've now created our Gantt chart. Now let's have a look at our second way of doing this, which uses conditional formatting. For this method, we don't need to calculate the number of elapsed days. I've also pre-filled the data as we did before. The first stage of creating our Gantt chart is to set out the dates along the top. I'm going to start by typing the 1st of March 2024. Click on it and drag that along until 20th of March, so that we can make these cells small and easy to see. I'm going to put the dates on an angle. To do that, come to the Home tab, then come to Orientation and click Angle Counterclockwise. Now the dates are all angled, so we can make all of our cells relatively small. I'm also going to add borders to our Gantt chart area. To do that, select the range of cells that will make up the Gantt chart. Then, under Home, click All Borders. That makes all of the borders easier to see. We're now going to start our conditional formatting. Our conditional formatting will be made up of 2 rules. The first will highlight the cells that make up our date ranges. The second will put grey bars over the weekends, so it's easy to understand where they are. To create our conditional formatting rules, select all cells that will become part of the Gantt chart. Then, on the Home tab of the ribbon, come to Conditional Formatting, then click Manage Rules. We need to create 2 rules. First, we're going to create a rule to highlight the cells in the date ranges for our Gantt chart. To do that, first click New Rule. We're then going to use a formula to determine which cells to format, so select that rule type. Now it's time to create our formula. I'm going to click this arrow to expand it out. For our rule, we want to highlight if a cell is greater than or equal to the start date and less than or equal to the end date. To apply that condition, we're going to need the AND formula. So start by typing equals AND, then opening brackets. We now need to enter our first condition. This first condition is that this date is greater than or equal to our start date. We now need to manipulate the absolute values that form this formula. The dates along the top that each cell is referencing are always going to be in the 3rd row, no matter which row the cell we're looking at is. So we need to keep the dollar before the 3. However, we want each column's worth of cells to reference the date at the top of that column. So we need to remove the dollar sign before the F. You can do that manually, or you can press F4 with your cursor on the F3, and that will then take the dollar sign away. We now also need to change the absolute values of B4. In this scenario, the start date is always in column B, no matter which cell we're referencing. So we need to keep the dollar sign before the B. However, for each row, we want it to be looking at the start date for that task, and therefore we need to remove the dollar sign before the 4. Pressing F4 twice does that for us. Now we've done with the first condition. Add a comma. We're now going to set our second condition, which is that the date at the top of the column is less than or equal to the end date. So as before, select the first date and press F4 to remove the dollar sign before the F. Then type less than or equal to, and finally select end date. Again, pressing F4 twice, remove the dollar sign before the 4. Finally, close the brackets and press enter. We're now going to select the formatting for these cells. Come to Format, Fill, and then pick a colour. I'm going to pick this green and click OK. We've now created our rule. Click OK, then click Apply. Finally, you can click OK. We can now see our cells are highlighted, laying out our Gantt chart. Let's now add a second formatting rule to highlight where the weekends are. To do that, select our chart area again. Then come to Conditional Formatting, Manage Rules, and then click New Rule. Again, we're going to use a formula to determine which cells to highlight. Then click this up arrow. This formula is a bit simpler. We want to work out if the date at the top is a weekend or not. To do that, we're going to use Excel's WEEKDAY formula, which returns the day of the week for the date given. Type equals weekday, then open brackets. Then select the date at the top of the first column. As before, we need to change the absolute value references here. For all of our cells, the date is always going to be in the third row, so we need to keep the dollar sign before the 3. But for each column, the date is going to shift with the column. So we need to remove the dollar sign before the F. You can do this by pressing F4 on the keyboard, and that gives us this. We now need to pass a second parameter to weekday, put a comma. There are several different ways that weekday can return the value for the day of the week. For our example, we want weekday to start counting from 1 on a Monday through to 7 on a Sunday. I happen to know that the formatting type for that is number 2. So put a number 2 here, then close the brackets. Weekday here is going to return a value. It's going to be a weekend if it's greater than 5. So value 6 is Saturday and value 7 is Sunday. So now enter a greater than symbol and press the number 5 and hit enter. That's our weekend calculation formula. Now we need to set the formatting. Come to Format, under the Fill, choose Pattern Color. I'm going to choose this grey. Then choose the pattern style to be these diagonal lines. Click OK, Then click OK to formalise our rule. Then click Apply. Finally, click OK again. You can now see that the weekends have this grey pattern over them. That's all we've got to show you in this tutorial. I hope you found it useful. If you have, leave us a like, subscribe, and leave us a comment. Hopefully I'll see you again soon for another Excel tutorial. But for now, thank you for watching, and goodbye.